Have you ever felt the sting of being told no by hospital staff because they think it's unsanitary when you know that your service dog has every right to be there? Yeah, me too. And it nearly happened to me once again when I had to go to the hospital for surgery. Even though they knew from our pre-admission appointment and phone call that I had a service dog, on the day of surgery, the staff hesitated to let my service dog go into the pre-op holding area with me. They said, "I don't think your dog is allowed in here due to sanitary issues." It was stressful, especially right before a procedure. But here's the thing. I knew my rights, and you deserve to know your rights too, because no one should have to fight these battles when they're already vulnerable and seeking medical care. I'm going to tell you exactly where your service dog can go in a hospital and what the actual laws are, because you need to know your rights. Most importantly, you need to know what to do when you're told no and you absolutely shouldn't be. So before I tell you what finally happened, first let me tell you the essential rules for bringing a service dog into the hospital so you can be prepared, confident, and know exactly what to do if you face a similar situation. Knowledge is power, and I'm here to give you the information you need to confidently navigate hospitals and get the care you deserve with your loyal companion by your side. Hospitals. They're supposed to be places of healing, right? Places where we go to get better, to feel safe. But sometimes they can feel like battlegrounds for service dog handlers. I've heard stories and experienced some myself of people being denied access to critical areas, questioned relentlessly about their dog, and just made to feel like a burden. Like they're just asking for too much. It's unacceptable, it's wrong, and it's against the law. So let's break down the facts, because knowing your rights is the first step in protecting them. The Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, is crystal clear. Service dogs are allowed in all areas of the hospital where the public is allowed to go. That means patient rooms, waiting areas, clinics, cafeterias, labs, you name it. Every single place a visitor or patient can go, your service dog is allowed to be with you. There are very limited exceptions, like operating rooms or burn units, where sterility is absolutely required. A good rule of thumb is that if people are required to cover their shoes to enter, then your service dog won't be allowed. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but what about hygiene? Hospitals are supposed to be clean, and that's a valid concern. We all want hospitals to be clean, but guess what? Studies have actually shown that dog paws are cleaner than the soles of our shoes. Google it. Look at the studies yourself. Think about it for a second. Think about where your shoes have been. Public restrooms, busy streets, maybe even a dog park. Who knows what's lurking on the bottom of your shoes? Dogs, especially service dogs, are often meticulously groomed. Their paws are regularly checked and cleaned, and believe it or not, their saliva even has antibacterial properties. So the whole dirty paws argument, it just doesn't hold water. It's a convenient excuse, not a legitimate concern. Now let's talk about specific situations, because each one has its own nuances. You're an inpatient. You're already dealing with health issues. You're vulnerable. The last thing you need is the stress of being separated from your service dog. Your dog is part of your support system, part of your healing process. The ADA is clear. Your service dog stays with you in your room. They are part of your medical support team. Now, if you're unable to care for your dog during your stay, maybe you're too sick or recovering from surgery, the hospital must allow you to make arrangements for a friend or a family member to come in and help with the dog's needs. Separating you from your service dog should be the absolute last resort, and only if you have no other options. The hospital can't just decide to board your dog. They have to work with you. What about visiting a loved one? Same rules apply. Your service dog is welcome in patient rooms, waiting areas, anywhere visitors are allowed. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let them make you feel like you're imposing. You have the right to be there with your service dog. And if you're in the ER, even in that high-stress, chaotic environment, your service dog has the right to be there with you, performing his job when you need him most. He can even ride in the ambulance with you unless space is incredibly tight and it would genuinely physically hinder the medical staff's ability to treat you. Even then, they're supposed to make arrangements for your dog to be safely transported to the hospital to meet you. Hang with me until the end, and I'll tell you how my surgery experience turned out. Now let's talk about labs, because this is another area where people sometimes face resistance. Need a blood draw, going for an x-ray, having an MRI. Your service dog can be there. They can be in the room with you or stay behind the protective screen with the technician to prevent radiation exposure. But generally speaking, the brief exposure during a standard x-ray is not considered harmful. If you're worried, your vet can give you specific advice based on your dog's health and the type of procedure. And what about labor and delivery? This is a particularly sensitive time, and having your service dog with you can provide invaluable peace of mind and support. Generally, service dogs are allowed in labor and delivery rooms. If nobody is wearing covers on their shoes, your service dog can be there. It's best to clarify this with the staff long before your due date. However, there might be specific circumstances where the presence of a service dog could genuinely pose a health risk, such as if a sterile field is required for a particular procedure, like maybe a cesarean section. These instances are rare and should be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. The hospital should never impose a blanket ban on service dogs in labor and delivery. They need to work with you to find solutions that ensure both your safety and the presence of your support animal. The truth is, the most common excuse for denying service dog access are often the most insidious. Allergies, fear, these are the hurdles many of us face every day, and knowing how to overcome them is absolutely essential. Don't go anywhere because I'm going to cover that too. Okay, so you know your rights, you're armed with the facts, but what happens when you encounter resistance? Unfortunately, it happens, and it's infuriating. Here is what you do. Stay calm. Be firm. Don't get into an argument or make a scene. Politely explain the ADA regulations. You can even show them the ADA's frequently asked questions about service dogs website on your phone. Have it bookmarked. If they still refuse, ask to speak to a supervisor or administrator. Go up the chain of command. Document everything: the date, time, the names of the people you spoke to, and what they said. If you're still illegally denied access, you can file a complaint with the Department of Justice, and they may or may not investigate and file a lawsuit. But regardless of what the DOJ says, always file your complaint with your state-level protection and advocacy organization. Every state is required to have one, and your chances of them pursuing your complaint are better than relying on the DOJ. Just Google the name of your state, followed by the words protection and advocacy. But file with the DOJ because they keep track, and if they see multiple complaints against the same business, the chances are greater that they'll take your case. Now, let's address the two common and completely invalid excuses for denying you access: allergies and fear of dogs. These are often used as a way to discriminate against service dog handlers, and it's important to know that the Department of Justice has explicitly stated that allergies and fear of dogs are not legitimate reasons to deny access to a service dog. Hospitals have a legal and ethical responsibility to accommodate both the person with the disabilities who uses service dogs and the person with allergies or fears. This might involve things like designating specific areas for the person with allergies, or providing information about service dogs to alleviate fears, or providing space between the people impacted. It never means denying access to someone who needs their service dog. The hospital has to find a way to make it work for everyone. not choose the seemingly easier path of excluding the service dog. Look, I know this can be a really tough process. It's exhausting to have to constantly advocate for your rights. It's not fair, but it's the reality we live in. But you're not alone. There's a whole community of service dog handlers out there supporting each other. We've all been through similar experiences, and we're here to help. Don't be afraid to reach out to disability rights organizations or service dog advocacy groups. They can provide you with resources and support. They can help you navigate the system and give you the strength to keep fighting for what's right. Okay, so about my surgery. I always carry a copy of the law about service dogs with me, just in case. When the nurses seemed unsure about my dog coming in, I showed them the paperwork. They said they'd make some calls, and guess what? It worked. They let her into the pre-op area, and she even got to stay right there on my bed. When it was time for the OR, my husband took my service dog to the waiting room. Then after surgery, when I was brought to recovery, he brought her back. She stayed on the bed with me while I woke up from anesthesia. It was an amazing experience having her there. Here are a couple of pictures of my service dog on my bed with me. That was my first service dog I ever had. Remember, you deserve to be treated with respect, and your service dog is not just a pet. They're a vital part of your life, providing essential healthcare work. You have the right to access healthcare, just like everyone else, so don't let anyone take that away from you. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're asking for too much. You deserve to be there. Your dog deserves to be there. Speaking of fighting for your rights, did you know there's only been one service dog case that ever made it all the way to the Supreme Court? It's a wild story with some twists and turns you won't believe, and it was a huge impact on how we understand service dog access today. If you want to learn about the landmark case that helped shape service dog law in America, then check out my video linked here. Also, you might want to see my video on fighting the allergies and fear of dogs issues. Click on the links on the screen now. You won't want to miss them. In the comments section, tell us about your experience with hospitals.